Scene 2. Inside the round room. At the back is a white porcelain stove. On either side of it are a mirror, a pendulum clock, and a candelabra. On the right of the stove is the entrance to the hall, beyond which is a glimpse of a room furnished in green and mahogany. On the left of the stove is the door to a cupboard, papered like the wall. The statue, shaded by palms, has a curtain which can be drawn to conceal it. A door on the left leads to the hyacinth room, where the girl sits reading. The back of the colonel can be seen, as he sits in the green room writing. Bengtsson, the colonel's servant, comes in from the hall. He is wearing livery, and is followed by Johansson, dressed as a waiter. Bengtsson. Now you'll have to serve the tea, Johansson, while I take the coats. Have you ever done it before? Johansson. It's true I push a war chariot in the daytime, as you know, but in the evenings I go as a waiter to receptions and so forth. It's always been my dream to get into this house. They're queer people here, aren't they? Bengtsson. Yes. A bit out of the ordinary, anyhow. Is it to be a musical party, or what? The usual ghost supper, as we call it. They drink tea and don't say a word, or else the colonel does all the talking. And they crunch their biscuits, all at the same time. It sounds like rats in an attic. Why do you call it the ghost supper? They look like ghosts. And they've kept this up for 20 years, always the same people saying the same things or saying nothing at all for fear of being found out. Isn't there a mistress of the house? Oh yes, but she's crazy. She sits in a cupboard because her eyes can't bear the light. He points to the paper door. She sits in there. In there? Well, I told you they were a bit out of the ordinary. But then, what does she look like? Like a mummy. Do you want to have a look at her? He opens the door. There she is. The figure of the colonel's wife is seen, white and shriveled into a mummy. Johansson. Oh my God. Mummy, babbling. Why do you open the door? Haven't I told you to keep it closed? Bengtsson, in a wheedling tone. Ta-ta-ta-ta. Be a good girl now, and then you'll get something nice. Pretty Polly. Mummy, parrot-like. Pretty Polly. Are you there, Jacob? Car! Bengtsson. She thinks she's a parrot, and maybe she's right. Whistle for us, Polly. The mummy whistles. Johansson. Well, I've seen a few things in my day, but this beats everything. Bengtsson. When a house gets old, it grows moldy. And when people stay a longer time together and torment each other, they go mad. The mistress of the house. Shut up, Polly! That mummy there has been living here for 40 years. Same husband, same furniture, same relatives, same friends. He closes the papered door. And the goings-on in this house, well, they're beyond me. Look at that statue. That's her when she was young. Good Lord. Is that the mummy? Yes. It's enough to make you weep. And somehow, carried away by her own imagination or something, she's got to be a bit like a parrot. The way she talks and the way she can't stand cripples or sick people. She can't stand the sight of her own daughter because she's sick. Is the young lady sick? Did you know that? No. And the colonel, who is he? You'll see. Johansson, looking at the statue. It's horrible to think that. How old is she now? Nobody knows. But it said that when she was 35, she looked 19. And that's what she made the colonel believe she was. Here, in this very house. Do you know what that black Japanese screen by the couch is for? They call it the death screen. And when someone's going to die, they put it around. Same as in a hospital. What a horrible house. And the student was longing to get in as if it were paradise. What student? Oh, I know. The one who's coming here this evening. The colonel and the young lady happened to meet him at the opera, and both of them took a fancy to him. Now it's my turn to ask questions. Who is your master? The man in the wheelchair. Oh. Is he coming here too? He hasn't been invited. He'll come uninvited. if need be. The old man appears in the hall on crutches, wearing a frock coat and top hat. He steals forward and listens. Bankston. He's a regular old devil, isn't he? Up to the ears. He looks like old Nick himself. And he must be a wizard, too, for he goes through locked doors. The old man comes forward and takes hold of Johansson by the ear. Rascal! Take care! To Bankston. Tell the colonel I am here. Bankston. But we are expecting guests. I know. But my visit is good as expected, if not exactly looked forward to. What name shall I say? Mr. Hummel? Exactly. Yes. Bankston crosses the hall to the green room, the door of which he closes behind him. To Johansson. Get out! Johansson hesitates. Get out! Johansson disappears into the hall. The old man inspects the room and stops in front of the statue in much astonishment. Amelia. It is she. She. Mummy from the cupboard. Pretty Polly! The old man starts. What was that? Is there a parrot in the room? I don't see it. Mummy. Are you there, Jacob? The house is haunted. Jacob! I'm scared. So these are the kinds of secrets they guard in this house. With his back turned to the cupboard, he stands looking at a portrait. There he is. He! The mummy comes out from behind the old man and gives a pull at his wig. Mummy. Cur! Old man, jumping out of his skin. God in heaven! Who is it? Mummy, in a natural voice. Is it Jacob? Yes, my name is Jacob. Mummy, with emotion. And my name is Amelia. No. No, no. Oh my God. That's how I look. Yes. Pointing to the statue. And that's how I did look. Life opens one's eyes, does it not? I live mostly in the cupboard to avoid seeing and being seen. But Jacob, what do you want here? My child. Our child. There she is. Old man, looking at the girl. Yes. That is she. What about her father? The colonel, I mean, your husband. Once when I was angry with him, I told him everything. Well, he didn't believe me. He just said, that's what all wives say when they want to murder their husbands. It was a terrible crime nonetheless. It has falsified his whole life, his family tree too. Sometimes I take a look in the peerage, and then I say to myself, here she is, going about with a false birth certificate like some servant girl, and for such things people are sent to the reformatory. Many do it. I seem to remember your own date of birth was given incorrectly. My mother made me do that. I was not to blame. And in our crime, you played the biggest part. No. Your husband caused that crime when he took my fiancée from me. I was born one who cannot forgive until he has punished. That was to me an imperative duty, and is so still. What are you expecting to find in this house? What do you want? How did you get in? Is it to do with my daughter? If you touch her, you shall die. I mean well by her. Then you must spare her father. No. Then you shall die. In this room behind that screen. That may be. But I can't let go once I've got my teeth into a thing. You want to marry her to that student. Why? He is nothing and has nothing. He will be rich. Through me. Have you been invited here tonight? No. But I propose to get myself an invitation to this ghost supper. Do you know who is coming? Not exactly. The Baron. The man who lives above, whose father-in-law was buried this afternoon. The man who is getting a divorce in order to marry the daughter of the caretaker's wife. The man who used to be your lover. Another guest will be your former fiancé, who was seduced by my husband. A select gathering. Oh God, if only we might die. Might die! Then why have you stayed together? Crime and secrets and guilt bind us together. We have broken our bonds and gone our ways, times without number, but we are always drawn together again. I think the Colonel is coming. Then I must go to Adele. Jacob, mind what you do. Spare him. She goes into the hyacinth room and disappears. The Colonel enters, cold and reserved, with a letter in his hand. Colonel. Be seated, please. Slowly the old man sits down. The Colonel stares at him. You wrote this letter, sir? I did. Your name is Hummel? It is. As I understand, you have brought in all my unpaid promissory notes. I can only conclude that I am in your hands. What do you want? I want payment, in one way or another. In what way? A very simple one. Let us not mention the money. Just bear with me in your house as a guest. If so little will satisfy you. Thank you. What else? Dismiss Bankston. Why should I do that? My devoted servant who has been with me a lifetime, who has the National Medal for long and faithful service, why should I do that? That's how you see him. Full of excellent qualities. He is not the man he appears to be. Who is? Old man, taken aback. True. But Bankston must go. Are you going to run my house? Yes. Since everything here belongs to me. Furniture, curtains, dinner service, linen, and more. How do you mean, more? Everything. I own everything here. It's mine. Very well. It is yours. But my family escutcheon and my good name remain my own. No. Not even those. You are not a nobleman. How dare you, old man, producing a document. If you read this extract from the Immemorial Gazette, you will see that the family whose name you are using has been extinct for 100 years. I have heard rumors of this effect, but I inherited the name from my father. Reads. It is true. You are right. I am not a nobleman. Then I must take off my signet ring. It is true, it belongs to you. Gives it to him. There you are. Old man, pocketing the ring. Now we will continue. You are not a colonel either. I am not? No. You once held the temporary rank of colonel in the American Volunteer Force. But after the war in Cuba and the reorganization of the army, all such titles were abolished. Is this true? Old man, indicating his pocket. Do you want to read it? No, that's not necessary. Who are you? And what right have you to be there stripping me in this fashion? You will see. But as far as stripping you goes, do you not know who you are? How dare you? Take off that wig and take a look at yourself in the mirror. But take your teeth out at the same time and shave off your mustache. Let Bankston unlace your metal stays and perhaps a certain XYZ, a lackey will recognize himself. The fellow who was a cupboard lover in a certain kitchen. The colonel reaches for the bell on the table, but Hummel checks him. Don't touch that bell and don't call Bankston. If you do, I'll have him arrested. And now the guests are beginning to arrive. Keep your composure, and we will continue to play our old parts for a while. Who are you? I recognize your voice and eyes. Don't try and find out. Keep silent and obey. The student enters and bows to the colonel. How do you do, sir? Welcome to my home, young man. Your splendid behavior at the great disaster has brought your name to everybody's lips, and I count it an honor to receive you in my home. My humble descent, sir. Your illustrious name and noble birth. May I introduce Mr. Arkenholtz, Mr. Hummel. If you will join the ladies in there, Mr. Arkenholtz, I must conclude my conversation with Mr. Hummel. He shows the student to the hyacinth room, where he remains visible, talking shyly to the girl. Splendid young man. Musical, sings, writes poetry. If only he had blue blood in him. If he were of the same station, I don't think I should object. To what? To my daughter. Your daughter! But apropos of that, why does she spend all her time in there? She insists on being in the hyacinth room except when she is out of doors. It's a peculiarity of hers. Ah, here comes Miss Beatrice von Holstein-Krone. A charming woman, a pillar of the church with just enough money of her own to suit her birth and position. Old man, to himself. My fiancé. The fiancé enters, looking a little crazy. Colonel. Miss Holstein-Krone. Mr. Hummel. The fiancé curtsies and takes a seat. The aristocrat enters and seats himself. He is wearing mourning and looks mysterious. Baron Skanskorg. Old man, aside without rising. That's the jewel thief, I think. To the colonel. If you bring in the mummy, the party will be complete. Colonel, at the door of the hyacinth room. Polly! Mummy, entering. Grrr! Colonel. Are the young people to come in too? No, not the young people. They shall be spared. They all sit silent in a circle. Colonel. Shall we have tea brought in? What's the use? No one wants tea. Why should we pretend about it? Then shall we talk? Talk of the weather which we know. Inquire about each other's health which we know just as well. I prefer silence. Then one can hear thoughts and see the past. Silence cannot hide anything, but words can. I read the other day that differences of language originated among savages for the purpose of keeping one's tribe's secrets hidden from one another. Every language, therefore, is a code, and he who finds the key can understand every language in the world. But this does not prevent secrets from being exposed without a key, especially when there is a question of paternity to be proved. Proof in a court of law is another matter. 2 false witnesses suffice to prove anything about which they are agreed. But one does not take witnesses along to the kind of explorations I have in mind. Nature herself has instilled in human beings a sense of modesty which tries to hide what should be hidden. But we slip into situations unintentionally. And by chance, sometimes the deepest secret is divulged, the mask torn from the impostor, the villain exposed. All look at each other in silence. What a silence there is now. Here, for instance, in this honorable house, in this elegant home where beauty, wealth, and culture are united. All of us now sitting here know who we are, do we not? There's no need for me to tell you. And you know me, although you pretend ignorance. He indicates the hyacinth room. In there's my daughter. Mine. You know that too. She has lost the desire to live, without knowing why. The fact is she was withering away in this air charged with crime and deceit and falseness of every kind. That is why I looked for a friend for her in whose company she might enjoy the light and warmth of noble deeds. That was my mission in this house. To pull up the weeds, to expose the crimes, to settle all accounts so that those young people might start afresh in this home, which is a gift to them. Now, I am going to grant safe conduct to each of you in his and her proper time and turn. Whoever stays, I shall have arrested. Do you hear the clock ticking like a death watch beetle in the wall? Do you hear what it says? It's time. It's time. It's time. When it strikes, in a few moments your time will be up. Then you can go, but not before. It's raising its arm against you before it strikes. Listen! It is warning you. The clock can strike. And I can strike too. He strikes the table with one of his crutches. Do you hear? The mummy goes up to the clock and stops it, then speaks in a normal and serious voice. Mummy, but I can stop time in its course. I can wipe out the past and undo what is done. But not with bribes, not with threats, only through suffering and repentance. She goes up to the old man. We are miserable human beings. That we know. We have erred and we have sinned. We, like all the rest. We are not what we seem, because at bottom we are better than ourselves, since we detest our sins. But when you, Jacob Hummel, with your false name, chose to sit in judgment over us, you prove yourself worse than us miserable sinners. For you are not the one you appear to be. You are a thief of human souls. You stole me once with false promises. You murdered the consul who was buried today. You strangled him with debts. You have stolen the student, binding him by the pretense of a claim on his father, who never owed you a farthing. Having tried to rise and speak, the old man sinks back into his chair and crumples up more and more as she goes on. But there is one dark spot in your life which I am not quite sure about, although I have my suspicions. I think Bengtsson knows. She rings the bell on the table. No, not Bengtsson, not him. So he does know. She rings again. The milkmaid appears in the hallway door, unseen by all but the old man, who shrinks back in horror. The milkmaid vanishes as Bengtsson enters. Do you know this man, Bengtsson? Yes, I know him and he knows me. Life, as you are aware, has its ups and downs. I have been in his service. Another time he was in mine. For 2 whole years he was a sponger in my kitchen. As he had to be away by 3, the dinner was got ready at 2, and the family had to eat the warmed-up leavings of that brute. He drank the soup stock, which the cook then filled up with water. He sat out there like a vampire, sucking the marrow out of the house, so that we became like skeletons. And he nearly got us put in prison when we called the cook a thief. Later I met this man in Hamburg under another name. He was a usurer then, a bloodsucker. But while he was there, he was charged with having lured a young girl out into the ice so as to drown her, because she had seen him commit a crime he was afraid would be discovered. The mummy passes her hand over the old man's face. Mummy, this is you. Now give it the notes and the will. Johansson appears in the hallway door and watches the scene with great interest, knowing he is now to be freed from slavery. The old man produces a bundle of papers and throws it on the table. The mummy goes over and strokes his back. Parrot. Are you there, Jacob? Old man, like a parrot. Jacob is here. Pretty Polly. Mummy. May the clock strike. Old man, with a clucking sound. The clock may strike. Cuckoo! 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 The mummy opens the cupboard door. Now the clock has struck. Rise, and enter the cupboard where I have spent 20 years repenting our crime. A rope is hanging there, which you can take as the one with which you strangled the consul, and with which you meant to strangle your benefactor. Go! The old man goes into the cupboard. The mummy closes the door. Bankston, put up the screen. The death screen. Bankston places the screen in front of the door. It is finished. God have mercy on his soul. All. Amen. The girl and the student appear in the hyacinth room. She has a harp, on which he plays a prelude, and then accompanies the student's recitation. I saw the sun. To me it seemed that I beheld the hidden. Men must reap what they have sown. Blessed is he whose deeds are good. Deeds which you have wrought in fury cannot in evil find redress. Comfort him you have distressed with loving kindness. This will heal. No fear has he who does no ill. Sweet is innocence.